Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Wrestling Doesn't Make Sense. It's the show where me and John talk about pro wrestling, whether or not it makes sense. Now, historically, there have been a lot of Wrestlemania pay-per-view events.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not 100% sure on the actual number. 34?
Well, it's the same age as me, so I think it's 36.
17.
Oh, no, wait. Is this 37 now?
37. Okay, so wow, were you born in the same day as Wrestlemania?
Not quite the same day, but the same year.
Okay, well, that's close enough. That's pretty good. Wow, that's good, sharing a birth year of WrestleMania. That way you
I can
always
remember
know.
how old I am.
Exactly, you always remember what WrestleMania it is, because I just, I don't know. I go by the year, I'm like WrestleMania 2021. That way I don't have to get too bogged down with it. But anyway, there's been a lot of WrestleMania events that we've all seen. Some of them have been pretty good. Some of them have been pretty not so good.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them have had really good matches on them.
Yeah.
While the rest of the card might be a little bit shaky. So what we thought we were going to do, now that it's WrestleMania season, is try to come up with the greatest WrestleMania card ever.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds pretty big, doesn't it? It sounds very grandiose, which is exactly what you'd expect from WrestleMania, which is supposed to be the grandest stage of them all. They used to call it that. And now the grandest stage of them all has Bad Bunny and Logan Paul on it. What happened?
It
used to be important.
Yeah. I'm sure there's someone out there who cares about them, so good for them.
Nobody cares about Logan Paul. Not even Logan Paul. This is ridiculous. But the point remains that there have been some, even you could count this year's WrestleMania if you wanted to. Some of them have been a little bit questionable, but some of them also have really good matches on the card. So we wanted to go back through wrestling history, specifically WrestleMania history, and try to select our own WrestleMania card. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to get no more than one match per WrestleMania. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So one match per WrestleMania, and also every wrestler that we pick can only appear once. Yes. So you can't have 3 different Undertaker matches.
Mm-hmm.
No good. You got to pick the best one. And then that guy, those 2 guys, that's the main event or the match, So 1 appearance per wrestler, 1 match per WrestleMania. And then we're going to assemble our own perfect WrestleMania card, and it'll be amazing. How many matches do you think we should have? 86?
We probably could have that many, but try and keep it to around, I'd say no more than 10, ideally.
10's pretty good. I like how you said we could get 86, but I'm like, if we're only doing 1 wrestler per match, Shawn Michaels would have been able to fit out most of those 86 matches himself.
Yeah.
We can't do that. We can only pick 1 Shawn Michaels match.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no. How is that? He's Mr. WrestleMania.
Yeah.
How are we going to do this? It's going to be tricky. So we shall, let's begin. Is there anywhere you want to start off straight away?
Well, it's not happened yet, but I just wanted to do a preemptive Miz versus Bad Bunny. Put that on the card. So I'm sure it's going to be a 5-star classic.
Oh, it's going to be something. I don't know if I would call it a 5-star classic or not. It'll definitely be a 5-star something. Who wants to watch that match?
Yeah, it's
You can defend The Miz all you want, but it's not going to change my opinion on The Miz if he's in there fighting a rapper with no prior wrestling experience. It's not. I feel like it's not going to make The Miz any more of a main eventer. He was the champion 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, now he's going to lose to a rapper on WrestleMania. So
what? My goodness. So, I'm gonna say this right now, and you're probably not gonna agree, but I suggest no Miz matches on this card.
Yeah, I think that shouldn't be too difficult.
It should be pretty easy, right? So, do you want to go by let's say, do you want to pick a person and or a match and go with that, or do you want to pick a WrestleMania and see if there's anything good on that? Do you think there's anything good from WrestleMania 1?
No.
Hulk Hogan and Mr. T versus Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper.
I mean, that was probably the best match on the show, but it's still not really a great match. But I don't know. I was gonna say, like, if I go for the match which like first popped into my head as soon as we came up with this concept, like the one that hit me immediately was Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25.
You know what's really funny? And I guess it's not really funny at all. But when you suggested this to me, I also was like, there's one match we gotta put on this. It has to be done. And that was Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker.
Of course.
So like that's your main event, is it? Your bad boy.
I'd go for that as the main event just because I think it's probably the greatest match that's ever happened at WrestleMania.
Do you mean the first one or the second one?
The first one, WrestleMania 25, the one where they didn't. Well, I think it was 26 where they kind of played up the religious aspect of it a bit more, didn't they?
Yeah.
And that one obviously had Shawn Michaels' career on the line as well, didn't it? So that one kind of, it wasn't really in question, like, you know, what they're going to do there in terms of the result. Whereas this one, I felt like they kind of did a really good job in the match itself of teasing the fact that Shawn Michaels could end the streak at that point. Like, even though you kind of knew going into it with your head that, you know, he didn't stand a chance, like, they made the heart believe that, you know, Shawn Michaels could beat Undertaker. Like when he kicked out the tombstone the first time and kicked out the last ride, like doing all this stuff which no one had ever done before at WrestleMania, except I guess Kane, I think, kicked out of a few tombstones in his first match with Taker, but still, like,
yeah, he's dead. That doesn't count.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just a classic match. Great crowd. They just pulled all the stops out, and you know, it's amazing.
I mean, it really was. And here's the thing: whenever you said, like, going into a lot of Undertaker matches at WrestleMania, you're pretty confident that the streak's gonna stay alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's mainly because he was fighting like fucking, you know, who's it's and whatever. Like even against Edge, right? You're like, Edge is a like up and comer, but also it's the Undertaker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Understandable. But then when you get him up against a guy like Shawn Michaels, you're like, Shawn Michaels' career speaks for itself. He has been able to put on top quality matches for a long, long time, and he's a big name in the business. You know, if anybody's gonna fucking stop him, Shawn Michaels is a good shot at it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right in that what made that match was, well, obviously the fact that the people in it are two fucking pros, but also that, you know, you really did. Shawn Michaels was able to do enough stuff to legitimize that, to make people think going into it, hey, he really could do this. When they see the match, you're like, oh my god, he is gonna do this. You know what I mean? Tips and scales, and you're like, he's got this fucking motherfucker. Shawn Michaels is gonna do it. And then whenever you get to the end and you see that even Shawn Michaels couldn't do it, you're like, oh my god, now I know nobody could do it. That's why the year after that, when it was Shawn Michaels again, you're like, of course, has to be Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
He came so close the first time, it couldn't be anybody else but Shawn Michaels, and he didn't do it the second time either. So you're like, oh no. And then the year after that, it was Triple H, and you're like, okay, if Shawn Michaels couldn't do it, Triple H can't do it.
Yeah.
Got all the love in the world for Triple H, but if Shawn Michaels can't do it, you know what I mean? That's a very good pick. I think that is worthy. I mean, that's a worthy match for both those guys.
But the trouble is, doing that, you kind of, like you say, Shawn Michaels has had a lot of good WrestleMania matches, so you kind of miss out on the ladder match with Razor Ramon and like his match with Bret Hart, the Iron Man match, or, you know, like the Ric Flair match as well, which I was so tempted to go with just from like an emotional standpoint, because I think that was just the perfect send-off for Ric Flair, which he then ruined by like continuing to wrestle. But well, still,
Shawn Michaels ruined his by continuing to wrestle.
Yeah, that's true. But, no one talks about those Saudi shows, so.
Yeah, we like Shawn Michaels better than Ric Flair.
Yeah.
So we'll allow it. But also, like, I really liked Ric Flair's match against The Undertaker.
Yeah, that was a classic.
Because again, you look at those two guys, and you're like, yes, Ric Flair was a legend in the business, but at that moment in time, you're like, look at The Undertaker, and then look at Ric Flair. Let's not kid ourselves here. But just because he's so good, he was able to like make people actually think he could pull it out.
Yeah, man. When Arn Anderson runs in and like hits a spine buster on Undertaker, you think, holy shit, this is Ric Flair's chance.
I remember watching that for the first time, and I was overjoyed because I didn't like The Undertaker.
And
I saw that, and once he saw that spine buster, you're like, that's it. That's it. He's fucking done it. Ric Flair, it doesn't matter how he did it, but he did it. Dirtiest player in the game. And he still didn't do it. Oh, boy. See how excited we are by talking about old wrestling matches? Why can't they just have a match like that at this year's WrestleMania?
Well, who knows? Maybe they will.
Maybe the Bad Bunny versus Miz match will be incredible. I don't think so. Okay, so we've got Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good main event. Although I'm sure we're going to come up with a couple of other matches that are main event worthy, shall we say? Well, should we go to the next one?
Yeah. What are you thinking?
Well, it's got to be Rock Hogan, right?
That's a pretty damn good shout, I'd say.
Rock Hogan is an incredible piece of business. I think you and me have a lot to say about the current state of professional wrestling and how quick it is and how like over flashy it is. There's a lot of style, but there's no substance to it. Nothing really hits or nothing really feels like it lands, right? And if you go back and watch Rock versus Hogan, it's really simple. It's very, very simple, but it's really effective. And it's partly because the audience are super into it, but mainly it's because the two guys in the match know what the fuck they're doing, right? If they went out there and started doing fucking suicide dives and planches and they jumped off the top of the fucking Titantron, first of all, I would love to see Hulk Hogan do that. Just jumping off the fucking Titantron. But also, like, they don't need to do any of that shit. I find that very interesting. They didn't need to do any of that stuff to have the audience in the palm of their hand. And I feel like that's a lost art. Remember, I think I talked about this in the show before, but it was an old quote by Terry Funk where he was in a match with somebody and the audience were chatting about how boring it was. So Terry Funk like locks his opponent in a headlock in the middle of the ring and just sits there and listens to these boring chants. And he tells the guy, he's like, remember, they're not working us, we're working them. I'm like, that's it, exactly. You don't have to go out and impress the crowd, all this shit. What you want to do is draw them in. You make them watch your show. And Rock Hogan is like such a good example of that. They make you watch it. And it's good. And like, you could count how many wrestling moves they do on one hand. But that match still goes on for like 20 minutes and you're still like glued to your fucking TV watching it.
Yeah. And this what makes it remarkable as well is like the crowd ended up turning that match completely on its head. Like, because the Toronto crowd was so pro Hogan, like they had to essentially like throw out all the stuff they had planned and call an audible and just like work on the fly. And doing that and feeding off the fans to kind of, ride that kind of, or the highs and lows of a match was incredible. Like, I mean, it shouldn't be incredible because, Hogan is obviously a guy who's been around for a long time and he has his critics as not being like a good wrestler in terms of like, technical stuff. And he's very much, he does his own thing in his matches, like pretty much every single time. So you can understand why people get, a bit bored of it. But he knows how to feed off a crowd and when to hit those spots at the right moments and stuff. And The Rock as well is a guy who, grew up in the business and adapted to it so quickly to become like a big star. So, just two pros at the top of their game.
Exactly. I mean, you're right in that they had to improvise that whole match, and like when you see it, you wouldn't know because it's just two fucking pros doing what they do, and like it's a lost skill. Like if you were to throw, a bunch of like how many people are at that fucking thing? 20,000.
Oh, probably way more than that.
You throw some of these fucking pricks out there in front of like 20,000+ people with no preparation. Just go work this 50-year-old man. A lot of people couldn't do it. And I'm not putting all the hype on the Rock. I mean, Hogan knows what he's doing. Let's not kid ourselves here. You're right. He's not the most technical wrestler of all time. You don't get to where Hulk Hogan is. Like learning a couple of things,
Yeah.
So like I would definitely put that Hulk Hogan match in there over like scores of other ones,
Oh yeah, hands down his best WrestleMania match, I'd say.
But he's had some good ones.
Well,
he's had a couple of good ones.
It's like I say though, it's all a bit same old typically, where he's against like a heel and then he gets beaten down and then he makes his comeback and then does the head shaking and the finger point and then the big boot and the leg drop and that's it. It's like, okay, same old.
Hey, if it works, it works. That means we can't put in Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, I guess so.
How are we going to put Ultimate Warrior on the show now?
Well, he did have a match with Triple H.
That's what I was going to say. Didn't he fight Triple H in like 8 seconds or something?
Yeah.
And we haven't got Triple H on the list yet. So. Okay, so Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Rock versus Hogan. Pretty good stuff so far. Pretty happy with this. Do you have anything else you want to suggest?
Well, if we're talking like some of the biggest stars in wrestling, we have to go for a Stone Cold Steve Austin match. And if you're doing WrestleMania matches, then it's pretty much a toss-up between Austin versus The Rock or Austin versus Bret Hart. And seeing as we've already got The Rock on the list, I would say the Bret Hart match takes it. So, they had the match at WrestleMania 13 with Ken Shamrock as the special guest referee. And it's like a remarkable match as well because it's the one where essentially, they both turned. Bret Hart came into it, technically the babyface, even though he'd like spent the previous couple of months kind of whining and bitching a lot because things weren't going his way. But like Austin was technically the heel going into it, but he was getting super over because of his antics because he was so different and so non-PG, I guess. Like he just didn't give a shit, and people really dug into that. So they had the wild brawl all around the ring and then into the crowd and stuff, and then you get like the iconic image of Austin getting busted open and getting trapped in the sharpshooter but refusing to quit. And it's just a perfect piece of business, really. Like it pretty much set up the rest of the year's storyline with Austin becoming like the big baby face of the company and Bret Hart becoming even more embittered and then starting like his Hart Foundation and having some of the best storyline stuff that he'd done in years, really.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. Now, here's the thing. Before this recording, we were briefly talking about, like, if you put Bret Hart in this match, it means we can't, you're missing out. Much like Shawn Michaels. Funny enough that those two fuckers would be paired together again. But much like Shawn Michaels, if you do one Bret Hart match, like, well, there's so many other good ones. Like, how do we ignore them? Like Bret Hart versus Owen Hart, for example. Is the one we talked about, which is a great fucking match.
Yeah.
But I think for what you said about it, like you said, it was a perfect piece of business. And God damn it, if you're not right about that, like the whole double turn thing that was done and again, it was done perfectly well by two pros, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't come out and say, all right, fuck face, I don't like you. And then the audience like, oh, I hate this guy now. They made you understand. They made you change alliances during the match.
Yeah.
Which is really, really clever. And that the finish where he doesn't tap out but he passes out, like that worked perfectly. All of that worked perfectly. It set Austin off. Like you said, he was already on like the rise. But by that match, it kind of like cemented both Austin and Bret Hart as two of the best, right? Just effortless by Bret Hart. And I agree in that after that, when Bret was kind of like a heel, like anti-American kind of guy, that shit was some of the best stuff he's ever done. People think Bret Hart can't cut a promo. Will you hear him slagging off America? He can cut a promo, you know?
Yeah.
I love that stuff. And, you know, as like a prelude to the rest of the year as to how it was going to go, that match is pretty hard to beat.
Mm-hmm.
That match was on WrestleMania 13, which was also headlined by The Undertaker versus Psycho Sid. So,
was that a match where Sid allegedly shat his pants as well?
Was it that one?
I think so. I think when Undertaker hit him with the tombstone, apparently he supposedly shat himself, but...
Hey, man. I mean, that would scare the hell out of me, too. You know? Okay. So, yes, I would go with that one, Bret Hart versus Steve Austin, because it's a perfect piece of business. And if you look at the matches we picked so far, you know, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Rock versus Hogan, Bret Hart versus Steve Austin, in their own ways, they're all like perfect pieces of business.
Yeah.
Perfect. Like so well put together. It's kind of astonishing how, you know, we're ribbing on WrestleMania for being shit, but like how often do they get it right at WrestleMania, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes they get it way not so good, you know, but sometimes they fucking do. Now, here, you know, I think it gets trickier. I'm gonna throw a name out, and we'll spitball what should be the match for this name. Okay. But I feel like we gotta have a Kurt Angle match.
Mm-hmm.
At WrestleMania, at our perfect WrestleMania.
Yes.
Because Kurt Angle also pretty fucking good. Right?
This is true.
Don't think anybody's gonna start, you know, having a go at me for that. But you know, which Kurt Angle match would you pick? Because he had a really good one against Brock Lesnar.
Mm-hmm.
But he had a really good one against Eddie Guerrero.
See, I had both of them as options on my list. And I think I lean more towards the Eddie Guerrero match. Because really, well, I don't know. I was going to say only because like of the botched ending in the Brock match, where obviously Brock goes for the shooting star press and nearly kills himself. But it's worth remembering with that Brock match that Kurt had just got injured beforehand. Like I think he'd actually, you know, pretty much broken his neck again. And he shouldn't have really been in that match at all. But the fact that he did go out there and, you know, drop the title to Brock and have that good a match whilst he was injured is just, you know, that's such a testament to how good of a wrestler Kurt Angle is.
I mean, you could say that like Kurt Angle went in there with an injury and still wrestled a perfect match. Brock Lesnar went in there with no injury and came out of it with an injury that he inflicted on himself. So, you know, already you're like, well, clearly Kurt Angle is the better wrestler of the two because one of them knows how to not fuck himself up while he's already fucked up. But again, like now that makes sense. But also, I always loved the finish to the Eddie match.
Yeah. Because
it's such an Eddie Guerrero. Like, it's a great finish. But also, it doesn't cheapen the match you've just seen. You know, it doesn't like, it's not a bait and switch or like a little fuck you. It all makes sense in the match, you know, and I really do like that match. I think it's really, really good. I mean, the thing is, you know, Kurt Angle's also fought Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. You're like, God damn it. Because normally if people were like, you know, Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels, obviously that's the best. You know, it's not going to get any better than that. But, you know, that's a curse of being Shawn Michaels, I suppose. He's just too good. So, what do you think? Should we go Should we go? Well, what about you're not gonna class Jericho, Benoit, Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 2000 as a classic?
I mean, I like that from the storyline point of view, the whole dual titles thing where uh, Kurt came into it as the double champion, didn't he? But then he left it without being pinned or submitted with
With
no
no
titles.
titles, yeah.
Yeah.
But exactly, but like it kind of you feel like it really did more for the Jericho Benoit feud.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good match and a good storyline and everything. But I'd probably go for the Kurt Angle versus Eddie Guerrero match over that, definitely.
Well, let's write that one down then. Angle versus Eddie Guerrero. I agree. Like again, if you're gonna have, you want to have Eddie Guerrero on there.
Yeah, exactly. It kills two birds with one stone then.
Okay, so we got Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Rock Hogan, Bret Hart versus Steve Austin, Kurt Angle versus Eddie Guerrero.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty fucking good so far.
Yeah.
Now, we've got 4 matches. We want to keep it under 10 or under.
Yes.
Is there any other big names you want to throw out that we can come up with a match for? Because there's one big match I want to talk about, but I don't think we're ready to talk about it just yet.
Oh, okay. I was probably gonna say what
the
big match you're thinking then. I was gonna say TLC from WrestleMania 17.
Oh my God, we're so in tune. This is unbelievable, folks. This is happening live. Yes, 100%. It was gonna be because I was like, with TLC, you tick a lot of boxes that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Think of all the great matches Christian has had at WrestleMania. Well, you know what? We'll just forget about them all. But I'm straight. Think of all the great matches he's going to have in All Elite Wrestling. Can't wait. But don't worry about that because we've got his WrestleMania one locked and loaded, But I think that one makes the most sense for like all of those guys, because the Hardy Boys themselves have put on some good matches at WrestleMania. The Dudley Boys have been in a couple of tag matches at WrestleMania. Edge, God bless him, has done a lot at WrestleMania. Even putting on a pretty good match from last year.
Oh, I hated last year's match.
You didn't like it?
The one where they were just brawling around the performance center for fucking hours on end. It felt like
it was very long. Yeah,
I didn't enjoy it.
That one went on like 10 minutes too long, which was a bit of a shame. And also because it was in the empty arena, and you could hear them like yelling at each other. That was a bit lame, but he puts on good matches.
Yeah.
So we got to put him in there somewhere. So Edge and Christian. When was that? 2001?
Yeah, WrestleMania 17.
I love that match. I love all those TLC matches. They are fucking wild.
Mm-hmm.
They are rough. Because those guys beat the shit out of each other.
But this was only the second TLC match as well, because they'd had the first one at SummerSlam the previous year, and they'd had the triangle ladder match at the previous year's WrestleMania as well, with the same teams involved. But this was definitely the best of the bunch because it brought in. Well, first of all, they kind of had more of an idea of what they were doing. I think, like in terms of like what they can do with the chairs and ladders and stuff, but. Each team had like their own sort of third as well. So you had Spike Dudley with Bubba and Devon, you had Rhino with Edge and Christian, and you had Lita with the Hardys, and them all getting involved in the match as well really added to it and like added to the excitement. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Also, I think it's worth mentioning now that we remember this, but now that we're in 2021, people might not get this. The reason that it was a TLC match to begin with, the reason that a TLC match exists is not just because they found 3 random shit weapons to put together. It's because the Hardy Boys' signature maneuver was jumping off stuff, so they used to use ladders. The Dudley Boys famously would put people through tables, and Edge and Christian used to do what they call a concerto, where they would stand in between somebody and hit a guy on both sides of the head with a chair. And so therefore, they all had their 3 specialities. So those 3 specialities went into this match. That was the point. Nowadays, when you see somebody having a TLC match, you're like, what the fuck does that even mean?
Yeah.
Why are there chairs? Who get like what does that do, right? But at the time, it was all because each of those little weapons was for each of those teams.
Mm-hmm.
It's really clever. And of course, like with everything else in WWE, that all got forgot about. And they're like, yeah, TLC matches for everybody. You know? Why not? But that stuff, all of those matches are pretty fucking. Is that the one where Lita jerks Edge off the ladder?
Say that again.
But that's the joke. There's a bit where I'm pretty sure it's Edge. Lita like pulls somebody off the ladder, right? I think it's Edge, and JR says Lita just jerked off Edge off the ladder. Like he leaves a big pause, like he says Lita just jerked Edge off the ladder, and you're like, oh JR, you slippery son of a bitch. Can't believe you got away with that one. It is perfect piece of business.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Maybe not. Oh, it's so good. So good. JR, whenever he wanted to, boy, that motherfucker, very, very good. So yes, I totally agree with this TLC. Edge, Christian, Jeff, and Matt Hardy, the Dudley Boys, Bubba Ray, and D1. I did love that, by the way, when they all got all three of the other guys involved, Rhino and Spike Dudley and Lita. It's just, again, like, it all makes sense,
Yeah.
Everything fits together. Isn't it nice whenever everything works?
It's so rare.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, case in point, WrestleMania 2021. There we go. We did it again. So, the card's looking pretty good so far. There's a couple of big names we haven't really talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any of them that you would want to mention now?
Well,
should we throw out a couple of names, or do you want to suggest something?
I was going to suggest, because there's one very obvious, famous WrestleMania match which we haven't touched upon. I figure it's probably going to be like the earliest match on the list as well. But it's got to be Macho Man Randy Savage versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat at WrestleMania 3 for the Intercontinental title.
That's pretty big.
And widely believed to be one of the best matches of all time. And it's hard to argue with it when you watch it. It's so good.
It really is. I mean, it's been a long time since I watched it, but it's one of those, like you said, it's one of those classic matches where whenever you get the opportunity to access a network full of all of the matches from wrestling history, you would, or pretty much all of them, you would be remiss not to go and watch some of those old matches just to see. And that was, again, that's one of the ones you go for. Like, it's one of the classics. So I saw that a long time ago. Obviously not a long time ago as in when it came out, because I don't know if I was born then. I might have been. But I mean, it was a couple of years ago since the last time I saw it. I need to go back and watch it again. But I remember watching it and thinking, just pretty much what everybody else saw, right? Here's two guys who know how to work, and they're doing it really well.
Well, the story is as well that they had practiced that match loads in the run up to WrestleMania. Like, Macho Man apparently really loved getting things, nailed down and almost properly choreographing matches, or big matches anyway. So he knew what he was doing. Well, and everyone knew what they were doing and involved in the match. So they'd had a lot of practice with this thing, and then clearly it paid off because they went out there and tore it down. So, yeah. I
had heard that about Randy Savage, in that he was a bit of a perfectionist and he wanted to get it right. Although I've heard that about Bret Hart too.
Yeah, but I think Bret was probably more capable of wrestling off the cuff as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Whereas Savage was just, he really wanted to get it right first time. And to be fair, fucker almost got he had a very good track record with him.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to mention his time in WCW because I don't think that was all his fault, but in WWF, they put him up against the right people. Smart. I feel like with time, some people forget just how good some of these older guys were.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about, not just with Bret Hart, but even Hulk Hogan. Right? People look at Hulk Hogan right now and go, he couldn't hold a candle to the punks these days. And you're like, yes, he could. He'd just be doing it differently, right? And Randy Savage was so good. Like his elbow drop, perfect every time.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Well, I think again, WCW might have had a couple of rough ones, but like when you see that guy fly, it looks like it hurts. And apparently, it's whenever Savage did it, it's like didn't hurt at all. You know what I mean? He was perfect with it. Like from what I've heard, if he wanted to, he could really clobber you with it. But for the most part, like he was so safe with it, and you didn't even feel it, but it looked like a million bugs. You know, you see people hitting elbow drops these days, sloppy as all hell. It looks like it hurts more probably because the guy's fucking it up. You know. Randy's, and again, Ricky Steamboat, a guy I haven't seen a whole lot of Ricky Steamboat matches. But you don't really need to, you know.
Yeah.
Once you've seen this one, you're like, that'll do.
Well, I'd still say watch the Ric Flair
the Ric Flair ones. Yeah, okay. Well, those two, and that's it. So what do we got now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 matches.
Shit.
I would like to throw out something to you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're gonna necessarily pick it, and I might be biased. In fact, I'm almost certain that I am biased. But disregard that. We still got a couple of spots left, and we still got a lot of big names to put on this list. I'm going to throw out a match to you involving 2 big names in professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
You tell me whether or not you think it should be on here. Now, again, I might not be putting this on because it's as good as some of these other matches. I might be putting it on just because these are 2 guys who deserve to be at the best Wrestlemania. Yeah. But I also think it was a good match. So I'm going to throw out CM Punk against Chris Jericho.
I can't really remember that match.
Let me explain. Well, of course, because poor CM Punk didn't get a chance to main event WrestleMania. Do you remember what WrestleMania this was at? You probably don't.
No.
Well, the main event of this WrestleMania was John Cena versus The Rock. So poor CM Punk. And I remember it was a really good match because I remember the build up to it. You know, Jericho was like pouring whiskey into Punk's mouth and trying to get him to not relapse, but to not be a straight edge guy anymore. And he was really like riling him up and having a go at him and really being a great heel, and Punk being like a great face, you know. And they had a match at WrestleMania, which I think, you know, again, people, they're not going to remember it because of The Rock and John Cena. And also this was I think Undertaker and Triple H were on that one as well.
Right.
So a little bit of stiff competition. I don't remember that match being like a 5-star classic, but I remember it being pretty fucking good considering. Mm-hmm. You know, like look at the 2 guys in there. Guys know what they're talking about. So what I suggest we do, let's put that in like a little maybe pile.
Okie dokie.
But CM Punk and Jericho down at the bottom of the list for now, because we've still got a couple of spaces left. Okay. So anything else you wanna throw out? There's still some big names we're not covering here.
Well, I was gonna say we need to have at least one women's match on there, but like I've got my pick for what it should be, but I'm interested to know what yours would be. I
mean, let's be honest here. Once again, there's only one pick.
Mm-hmm.
Surely to goodness, there is only one pick. Not to say that there's only one good women's match at WrestleMania, because in a spectacle kind of way, I would love to put like Triple H and Stephanie against Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey, because that match delivered.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of fun to watch. Now, again, you're not going to call it a 5-star classic match by like technical standpoints, but like it's very entertaining. It did its job perfectly, and it got everybody involved like pretty over, especially Ronda Rousey, which was the whole point of it.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think if we're gonna plus we already put Kurt Angle in, so we can't do that. But I think if we're gonna go for the women's match, it's got to be, which I assume is the same one you picked, Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, and Charlotte Flair.
Well.
Oh my! What?
Here's the thing. I
Oh.
considered that, and I thought, that's a history making match right there. And up until like the slightly botched finish, it was a good match as well.
Mm.
But I kind of thought, looking at this out of left field, sort of, I thought maybe Trish Stratus versus Mickie James from WrestleMania 22.
That's a good one. No, to your point, you're correct in that triple threat match, Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey and Charlotte, the way that triple threat ended, which was it's a shame, but that is a what we could say a negative point against it. Whereas Mickie James versus Trish Stratus, like that's got build up, it's got two quality people, in the ring. It has storyline. It all made sense. You mean that one's pretty hard to deny,
Yeah.
I like that. Have we got any other women's matches that have that kind of again, these days you kind of get that kind of thing. Like Charlotte Flair versus Rhea Ripley from last year.
Yeah, that was a hell of a match.
Very, very good match. What? And in that way, we could put Charlotte in that way. Let's be honest here, dude. Charlotte Flair is going to be on this list at some point. You know what I mean? And not just because she's everywhere. She is everywhere, but that's also because she's fucking good.
Exactly.
We can't, like if we did this list in another 5 years, we'd be like, wow, think of all those fucking Charlotte Flair matches we just had. See, now the women's one is a little bit trickier.
Yeah, because traditionally speaking, the women have been really underserved at WrestleMania for far too long. Like I'd say, mostly heading up into the number 30 and onward of WrestleMania.
Yes.
I mean, aside from Trish against Mickie James and Molly Holly versus Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the women's involvement in WrestleMania was in, Playboy bunny matches and stuff like that, which, they weren't really the best representation of the division, and it wasn't really the best use of the women either, because they'd be out there in like 2-minute matches or something just to kind of give people a bathroom break. So so if you're not going for something like Trish or Mickie or Molly and Victoria, then you're kind of looking at something from the last 5 or 6 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing stands out.
I think other than, I've written down Trish versus Mickie because that's a really good match with some veterans, a lot of proper build up, a really good match for the women. Really good representation. I think you're right in that. The only other one I could think of is the one you mentioned, which was Molly Holly versus Victoria. I couldn't really remember a whole lot of that, just because, like you said, they haven't done such a good job of representing the women properly at WrestleMania. Yeah, recently, honestly, Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley, I would say, is the only one in a long time that's properly memorable.
Yeah, I think there was a Charlotte versus Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks triple threat match at WrestleMania 32, which was pretty good as well. That's the one where they officially retired the Divas title and brought back the women's title.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty good as well. That's probably the first good women's match at WrestleMania for a long time. So
long time.
That's a shout as well, but yeah.
Okay, well here's what we got. We got Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker, Rock versus Hogan, Bret Hart versus Steve Austin, Kurt Angle versus Eddie Guerrero, the TLC, Edge and Christian, the Hardy Boys, Dudley Boys, Ricky Steamboat versus Randy Savage, Trish Stratus versus Mickie James.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we should put Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley on there?
I'd be happy to put that on there, yeah.
I think that was a really good one.
Mm.
I mean, and maybe we'll see some more. I mean, I hope that if we'd have done this podcast in 3 weeks' time, that we will be putting Rhea Ripley versus Asuka on here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, cross my fingers because I think that could be amazing. But we'll see. We'll see. Okay. So what else? What else do you think?
Okay. So I think we have to have Daniel Bryan on there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's one of the most popular guys of the last 10 years. He's arguably one of the best wrestlers ever to step foot in a WWE ring. And if you're going to put Daniel Bryan in there, then you kind of have to go with the main event of WrestleMania 30, where, like, the impossible dream became a reality. Because, looking back, going into that WrestleMania, WWE had zero intention of putting him in that role whatsoever. They kind of had their arm twisted by the sheer fan support for Daniel Bryan and like the underdog story that he managed to kind of build on his own, because the booking was not really in his favor at all. Even though they have like gone back and tried to rewrite history and pretend that like, oh yeah, that was the plan all along, it definitely wasn't. They brought back Batista at the Royal Rumble because that was going to be like his big final run, and he was going to get the world title match at WrestleMania. And Daniel Bryan's popularity just kind of steamrolled his way into the match, and then ended up with him walking out with the title as well. So it was just arguably like the most happy I've been at the end of a WrestleMania is seeing him holding up the title and celebrating with the fans going crazy for him and stuff. But it's just a shame, like, it was such a short-lived high as well, because then he got injured pretty quickly after and had to relinquish the title, and then it was like that whole long road to recovery that obviously took a good few years off his career. But yeah, for that one moment, it was pretty damn awesome.
I mean, again, I can't really fault any of the points you've just made. Just watching it happen was quite amazing. Daniel Bryan really is one of the, I would say he's the best wrestler in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if a lot of people would agree, but I think that he is and also has been for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Like, he's so good. He's deceptively good. You wouldn't look at him and think that he's the best wrestler in the world, but he is by a long way.
Mm-hmm.
That fucker knows so much. So it's also worth pointing out for this WrestleMania that the main event was Daniel Bryan being inserted into the match between Batista and Randy Orton, but he had to beat Triple H to get there.
Yeah, that's right.
On WrestleMania, that same night, the opening match was Daniel Bryan versus Triple H, and if Daniel Bryan won, he would go on to the main event. And so even through that WrestleMania, like, that was the theme, the Daniel Bryan underdog theme. I know a lot of people say that the Daniel Bryan thing was forced upon the WWE. I don't know if it was or not. Maybe quickened the pace a little bit, but I feel like the way they handled it on this WrestleMania made so much sense. And I'm like, they wouldn't have put this much time and effort onto it if it really was just like they must have known.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way they did it with him in the opening match and in the final match, it's perfect. Like you said, it's exactly the right underdog story to tell, and they told it really well with the right guy and the right people in the ring with him.
Yeah.
Even Batista, slag him off, but like, he was a competent enough worker. Randy Orton knows his shit. He can go with Daniel Bryan. They can work a triple threat easy enough.
Mm.
So I think, and also like that does get in like Randy Orton and Batista, who, whether you like them or not, have put on some good showings at WrestleMania. Randy Orton especially, fucking killing it these days.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not. Well, maybe he will kill it these days because he's fighting Bray Wyatt, so he's killed him before.
God, I hope he kills him again.
But then, if he kills him again, then what's Bray Wyatt gonna turn into?
Oh, I just hope he goes away.
He can't kill him again. Like, then he'll just turn into like some kind of turnip or something. You know, like it's just like a reincarnation cycle where he comes back as a bumblebee, and you're like, what does this got to do with wrestling? You know, am I a weirdo or did something drastically happen? Anyway, I think we've got room for one more. One more match. Now, again, like like when you read this card straight down, you're like, this is pretty fucking stacked. But again, there's so many people we haven't touched on. And if you want to talk about these days, you could say somebody like AJ Styles hasn't been on the list. You know, Brock Lesnar's not on the list. Triple H isn't on the list. John Cena's on the list.
Yeah, exactly.
So this very interesting. You know, the Blue Meanie's not on the list.
What?
Oh, he wasn't. He didn't wrestle at WrestleMania.
Oh,
He was in the corner of Goldust for, I think it was at WrestleMania '99.
Yes.
So he appeared at WrestleMania, which is still pretty good. I mean, I would take that, you know. But we're still missing some key players. What do you think? We got one match left. What do you want to do? What could we possibly do?
I don't know.
I know. I mean, we've hit a lot of big points, and again, like you can't go back and put, you know, a different Undertaker match in. We can't put like, again, like John Cena and the Undertaker end up fighting like lots of different people, so you can't put a lot of these people in because John Cena we haven't figured out yet, but a lot of the people he does fight, we've already put in this match or in this list, you know.
Yeah.
It's a tricky business. It's tricky business. Fandango versus Jericho.
I would say probably not. I mean, the best thing about that was just like the reaction to his theme music and that carrying over for like, you know, the next couple of months, whereas theme music was more over than Fandango was.
Yeah, it's not a good thing, I don't think. What about the gimmick battle royal from 2001?
Oh, there you go. Oh, but we've already had a match from WrestleMania 17.
Oh, what are the chances?
Son of a bitch.
If we hadn't had that, if it wasn't for the TLC match, we would have got Darren Cheek.
Oh,
boy. Well, nothing we could do about that. Can't be helped. Okay. I mean, there's still Punk versus Jericho.
Well, I've been trying to look it up. I can't find it on any WrestleMania card.
Punk versus Jericho?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Don't tell me the thing I seen didn't exist. Don't do this to me.
Oh, WrestleMania 28.
Yeah, the first Rock versus Cena one, I guess.
Right.
He wasn't around for the one after that.
Yeah.
Oh, no, he was around for the was he? No, he was around for the first one. I wasn't around for the second one.
Yes.
And like CM Punk, classic wrestler, really good. It's a damn shame he didn't get a chance to show what he could do at on the main event of WrestleMania because he could do it. Jericho, solid worker. You know, say what you want about Jericho and his political leanings these days, but when he's on, that he's really good. You know, Chris Jericho's a really good. He's really good at what he does. I don't know if he's the best in the world, but see what I did there?
Yeah, I did. That's pretty well done.
Thank you.
But yeah, like there's a few like potential Jericho matches you could say WrestleMania worthy as well. Like I mean, we've mentioned the whole triple threat dual titles match with Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit. Mentioned his match against Shawn Michaels.
Him and Regal had a fun match. I think 2001. But I wouldn't put that above, you know.
No.
I mean, he's pretty good, but I don't think I'd go that far.
Yeah, and this, you know, it ticks a couple of important boxes as well, getting Jericho and CM Punk on our lineup. So I'm all for this.
Okay, before we definitively pick that one, I want to throw something out. Did we pick anything from WrestleMania 23 yet?
23.
Because let me tell you, we could have had the Great Khali against Kane.
Oh.
Who are both going into the Hall of Fame this year.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, one of them definitely deserves to go into the Hall of Fame.
I think they're being inducted just because of that match, aren't they?
Well, I would imagine so. But what about Bobby Lashley with Donald Trump and Umaga with what's his name? Armando, his friend, and Mr. McMahon.
Armando Alejandro Estrada.
See, you remember that. I remember watching it and I didn't like him.
Yeah, he does the whole rolling of the arse thing, which I can't do.
Takes too long to announce who he is. You know? See, Edge got it right. My name's Edge. Thank you. Straight to the point.
Yeah. One syllable. In and out.
Kean knows what he's talking about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
In and out. Instead of fucking around with all this stuff. So I guess we're not picking anything from this. Wonderful. I mean, that had John Cena versus Shawn Michaels.
Yes.
So, like, you remember that, and you don't remember the rest of this shit at all. You know? And when I say shit, you know. Oh, dear. So what do you think? Should we put in CM Punk and Jericho?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't really remember the match much at all, but I'm happy to put it in just to get them on the card.
I would recommend going back and watching that one.
I definitely will do after this.
You know, I don't think... Like, let's be honest here. It's not going to be Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. However, it's also... I think it's a WrestleMania-worthy match. And I think when you look at the rest of the card, these are WrestleMania-worthy matches.
Mm-hmm.
So let's... For the sake of prosperity, let's go over what we got. We got CM Punk versus Chris Jericho. These aren't in order of, match order. You know, CM Punk versus Chris Jericho probably isn't going on first.
Yeah.
But this is what we got. CM Punk versus Chris Jericho. Classic. You know, 2 main eventers.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Bryan versus Batista versus Randy Orton. Again, classic. All 3 of them Hall of Famers. Charlotte Flair versus Rio Ripley. 2 really talented women these days. That's the most modern match on this list.
Yeah.
And those 2 are going to make a lot more classics. You know, they're so good. Trish Stratus versus Mickie James. 2 veterans of the business kicking ass when nobody thought they were going to deliver a good match. And then here they come. Just full head of steam, you know. Great stuff. Ricky Steamboat versus Randy Savage. Do we even need to tell you why that's a good match? Come on, man. Go watch it. Edge and Christian versus the Hardy Boys versus the Dudley Boys, a TLC match. To be honest with you, any of the TLC matches are classics. They're so good.
Mm-hmm.
This one just you gotta watch it. You gotta watch Lita jerking Edge off that ladder. Kurt Angle versus Eddie Guerrero is a match that I actually wanted to watch again recently because of how good it was. It's the ending. I love the ending so much. I'm not gonna spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it. But it's wonderful. Bret Hart versus Steve Austin, a huge turning point for both of those guys in their careers. Like it set Austin up to be Steve Austin, and it solidified Bret Hart as being just one of the best all-around workers in the business, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Rock versus Hogan, again, that match you don't need to talk. You just say it, and you're like, of course it's going to be big. Rock versus Hulk Hogan, and it is big. But it's very simple as well. Just watch that one. You'll have a great time. And then Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker.
At WrestleMania 25, we have to stress that.
The 25 one.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with the 26 match, but the 25 one was just better, in my opinion.
Well, exactly. Like, they're both really good. I think there's arguments for both, because the second time around, you see a lot more of the desperation from Shawn Michaels, like where he has to win, which is a really good angle as well. And again, like, not one that anybody thought of. You know, it's such a simple angle.
Well, and it played off, like, the Shawn Michaels Ric Flair match as well, where, you know, Ric Flair was the one who was in that same situation where he was desperately fighting for his career as well. So there's nice kind of parallels there.
God, Shawn Michaels really is he's the man, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
What a character. So that's it. That's our perfect WrestleMania card. 10 matches, right? And if you were to, in fact, I recommend everybody listening to this, take those 10 matches, take some time off of your busy schedules, make your own WrestleMania. Just watch those 10 matches, you know, in whatever order you want to, and you're gonna be entertained, like wall to wall. There's not a dud in that list at all. You know, that's pretty hard to beat, man. I would call that the perfect WrestleMania.
But I'm sure people out there can say otherwise, and because there are so many good WrestleMania matches that you could make a completely different like playlist to what we've come up with pretty easily, and still using a lot of the same guys as well. So
exactly, like we were talking about that. You know, Jericho, plenty of matches on there. If you want to use a different Undertaker match, I'm sure somebody else might even pick the second Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker, or they could have went with Ric Flair versus Undertaker, for example. That would leave Shawn Michaels open for the Jericho match. See, other people's lists might be a little different from ours. It is funny that both of us jump straight to Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker.
yeah,
We're like, that's got to be on there, you know? But I'm sure everybody else has like a much different list. We would all love to hear it. Make sure to give us a little comment and tell us what your perfect WrestleMania would be, because we're like genuinely curious as to what else. Because some people would go like more old school. I think there would be a lot more. You know, I reckon other people might not pick Rock Hogan, given that there are a lot of other like, or even the Bret Hart one. I think people might, you know, and we all know how good Bret Hart versus Steve Austin was, but like Bret Hart put on a lot of good matches. So if you guys have any differences of opinion when it comes to our list, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear it, and give the network a little go to watch our perfect WrestleMania, and let us know what you think of it as well. I think you'll be thoroughly entertained. But in the meantime, I think that's it. Is that it?
I think that's it.
I think that's it. We're going to wrap things up for this one. Thank you very much for listening, guys. Let us know about your perfect WrestleMania in the comments. And we'll see you next week. We'll be back with another awesome video that probably doesn't have The Miz in it.
Hopefully.
We'll see. So until the next time, we shall see you later. So adios.
Ciao.
Good day. Good night, I guess. Because it's nighttime. But it might not be nighttime when you listen to this. All right. Whatever.